Have you ever felt like traditional meditation or, chanting just doesn't truly click for you?
Oh, totally. Like you set the whole scene up, right?
Exactly. You cross your legs, you try to aggressively clear your mind, and you just sit there, waiting for this profound, mystical wave of absolute peace to wash over you.
And it never comes.
Right. Instead, you find yourself like mentally writing your grocery list, or you're stressing about some vaguely passive-aggressive email you got 3 days ago.
Yeah, and then you ultimately feel like you are somehow fundamentally failing at the basic act of relaxing.
Exactly. It's so frustrating.
It is an incredibly common, almost universal experience for anyone dipping their toes into mindfulness. I mean, we have developed this massive cultural expectation around meditation in the West.
We really have. We've commodified it.
Right. We've turned it into this binary state. It's like either you sit down and immediately achieve total Zen enlightenment, or, your brain is broken and you were doing it wrong.
And that pressure alone is just, it creates a performance anxiety that entirely defeats the underlying purpose of the practice.
Absolutely. We treat mindfulness like a standardized test we have to pass rather than a personalized tool we are meant to use.
That is the perfect way to frame it.
Yeah.
And our mission for today's deep dive is to completely dismantle that expectation, specifically regarding one deeply misunderstood corner of that world.
Mantras and incantations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are going to pull these concepts down from the mountaintop. We want to strip away the mystical, untouchable aura that surrounds them and analyze them for what they really are: highly practical, everyday psychological tools.
I love that.
The core thesis we are exploring today is so liberating. You do not need to visit a faraway guru, sit in a secluded ashram, or learn ancient dead languages to harness the genuine cognitive power of an incantation.
Right. And to guide us through this deconstruction, we are drawing on a deeply fascinating stack of source material today.
We really are.
We are doing a close read of a video transcript and the surrounding philosophy from a YouTube channel called the Blind Muslim Yogi.
Yes, the practitioner at the center of this is named Osman, and his background defies almost every stereotype you might have of a traditional mindfulness teacher.
It really does. I mean, he is a master-level bioenergy healer and a yoga and meditation teacher who has been deeply embedded in advanced practice for, wow, 50 years.
50 years. And he attained his first samadhi experience by age 19, which is just incredible.
Yeah, and running parallel to that spiritual journey, he is also a veteran entrepreneur. He has 29 years of incredibly volatile business experience under his belt.
And to give you, the listener, a clear picture of how he communicates, it's important to note that Osman has been permanently blind since May of 2023.
Right, but because he lived with normal eyesight for decades prior to that, his teachings are filled with these highly vivid visual descriptions drawn directly from his memory.
Yeah, it adds a fascinating layer to his material. Like, his overarching mission is to advocate for a rigorously scientific approach to life. He takes these ancient yoga and meditation sciences and strips away the complex, esoteric layers.
He isolates the exact methodologies that actually deliver tangible, real-world results.
Exactly. He provides a lot of this foundational material, including a free 5-minute yoga and meditation program, on his platform, yogawellness786.com.
Which is such a great resource.
It is. Just a quick note, though, he used to have a $5 anxiety fix on there, but he's very clear that is no longer available. Stick to the free 5-minute program.
Good to know. But before we delve into the mechanics of his methodologies, there is a fundamental caveat that Osman himself is exceptionally strict about.
Right, the medical disclaimer.
Exactly. It's a boundary we need to establish right here at the start. While he has decades of experience in natural therapies, energy protocols, and he does direct individuals to his site for these practices, he is explicit that anyone dealing with a medical condition must seek out a qualified, licensed medical professional.
That's so important. The psychological tools, the cognitive framing, and the energy techniques we are unpacking today are strictly complementary practices.
Right. They are designed to run parallel to and enhance your general well-being. They are not to be treated as replacements for targeted professional medical intervention.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because Osman doesn't ease into his critique, does he?
Not at all.
He goes straight after the traditional, almost Hollywood-style view of mantras. We are talking about the prevailing cultural idea that to get any real cognitive or spiritual benefit, you require a secret Sanskrit word.
Oh, yeah. The secret word that is supposedly perfectly tuned to the universe, whispered to you by an exclusive teacher.
Right, and often it is a word that the practitioner doesn't even know the literal functional translation for.
What's fascinating here is that he is addressing what we might call the authenticity and compatibility problem in the modern wellness industry.
Which is a huge issue.
It is. And Osman isn't sitting there claiming that those ancient traditional mantras are inherently fraudulent. What he's questioning is their universal accessibility and their absolute efficacy across all psychological profiles.
Right.
He points out a raw statistical reality. Even if you travel to the most highly famed, internationally reputed retreat centers, places with thousands of glowing testimonials, deep lineages, and rigorous vetting, the absolute best case success rate is usually hovering around 90%.
Now, let me challenge that 90% number for a second. If a specific Sanskrit phrase works for 90 out of 100 people, isn't there something objectively powerful happening there?
Well, sure.
Like, are we talking about the actual phonetics of the language, like the physical vibration of the syllables stimulating the vagus nerve? Or is this just the ultimate manifestation of the placebo effect?
It is a phenomenal question, and the science points to a combination of both. Yeah. There's definitely neurobiological data suggesting that certain repetitive phonetic sounds, particularly the long vowel tones common in Sanskrit chanting, do stimulate the vagus nerve.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which in turn activates the parasympathetic nervous system, lowering heart rate and signaling safety to the brain. We cannot discount the biological mechanism of sound.
Right. But what about the placebo part?
Well, when you travel across the globe to an exclusive retreat, you have massive sunk cost bias and expectation bias at play. The placebo effect in those environments is incredibly potent.
That makes total sense.
However, Osman's focus isn't on the mechanics of the 90% who succeed. And he actually clarifies that this 90% success rate isn't even some extraordinary miracle.
Wait, what does he mean by that?
He explains that it's actually just normal biology. People are generally unaware of how this type of healing using natural energy works. He says that if anyone follows his protocol, their natural energy improves. This naturally boosts their immunity by 90% without any external energy healing at all.
So it's just the body functioning optimally.
Exactly. Cancer and severe ailments, in his view, are often a result of modern lifestyles that completely deplete our natural energies. Natural spirituality and yoga protocols just replenish this lost energy.
Which reverses those severe ailments with practice and time. That's a huge paradigm shift.
Yeah.
But getting back to the mantra success rate, his focus is entirely on the forgotten 10%.
Precisely. Because for that 1 in 10 people, the biological hack and the placebo effect completely fail to launch.
Right. For that 10%, the revered mantra will simply not sync. It will have zero psychological resonance. The vibration, the tradition, the specific syllables, none of it connects with their internal state.
And the real tragedy of the modern mindfulness industry is that those people in the 10% usually pack their bags and walk away feeling fundamentally broken.
It's so sad. They assume their mind is too chaotic or they are spiritually deficient, when in reality, it is just a mechanical mismatch between the tool provided and the user's cognitive architecture. It's exactly like trying to force an off-the-rack piece of software onto a totally different operating system. You buy the program, the box claims it is the ultimate productivity suite, all the tech blogs are raving about it, but when you try to install it on your specific machine, it just immediately crashes.
That is a brilliant analogy.
If it doesn't run, it's not your fault, right? Your hardware isn't defective, it's just a fundamental compatibility issue. But it makes me wonder, why are we as a culture so obsessed with the idea of a universal magic bullet when human psychology, our traumas, and our mental frameworks are so incredibly varied?
We flock to the idea of a universal fix because it completely removes the heavy burden of self-discovery.
Well, that hits hard.
I mean, if the secret Sanskrit word is guaranteed by a guru to work, then I am absolved of the hard, often painful work of examining my own mind. I don't have to map out my unique emotional triggers, my specific anxieties, or my personal history.
You just have to sit in a room and repeat the magic syllables.
Exactly. This is an outsourcing of cognitive labor.
This totally reminds me of the conversations they have on the Buddha at the Gas Pump Deep Dives. Rick Archer hosts that show, and he talks to a lot of spiritual teachers about this exact trap.
Oh, for sure.
Like he had Adyashanti on, and Adyashanti is always talking about stripping away the illusion of these dogmatic practices. And Rupert Spira was on there talking about the direct path, where you don't even need mantras to recognize awareness.
Yes, and Locke Kelly was on that show too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Locke Kelly talks about effortless mindfulness. It's so aligned with what Osman is saying. It's about finding what naturally works for your brain, not forcing a dogmatic tradition.
Osman's scientific approach shatters that comfortable illusion. He is arguing that the transformative power doesn't reside inherently in the secret syllables themselves. The power is generated entirely by the resonance between the phrase and the individual's specific localized psychology.
So if you are listening to this deep dive right now, I want you to genuinely reflect on your own experiences. Have you ever tried a highly publicized self-help trend or downloaded an award-winning meditation app? Or attempted that perfect 5 a.m. morning routine that supposedly turned everyone else into a billionaire?
And it left you feeling completely unaffected.
Or worse, highly frustrated and inadequate. What Osman is doing here is giving you clinical permission to drop the guilt. It just wasn't coded for your operating system.
And that realization is the critical bridge in Osman's methodology. If foreign secret words aren't the universal one-size-fits-all answer, we are forced to look under the hood.
Right. We have to ask, what is the actual mechanical function of a mantra?
Stripping away the incense and the ashram, what is an incantation actually doing inside the neurobiology of the brain?
He makes a massive pivot here. He shifts the mantra completely away from being a mystical vibration meant to summon the divine and reframes it as a highly practical, almost utilitarian cognitive tool.
Yeah, he starts with a blunt observation about the human condition. Our minds are constantly, relentlessly busy thinking of so many different things randomly all the time.
It's not a serene river. It is a chaotic, exhausting stream of consciousness.
We are talking about cognitive noise, specifically driven by what neuroscientists call the default mode network, or the DMN.
Oh, the DMN. We hear about this a lot.
Right. From a purely evolutionary standpoint, our brains are not designed to be happy or peaceful. They are designed to keep us alive.
Survival mode.
Exactly. Therefore, when we are not actively engaged in a focused task, the DMN kicks in. It constantly scans the environment for threats. It simulates complex social dynamics. It rummages through our memory to replay past mistakes so we don't repeat them.
The worst. Replaying awkward conversations from 5 years ago.
And it projects hypothetical future anxiety so we can prepare for them. It is an endless, highly taxing cycle of background processing.
So how does Osman's approach fix this?
Osman frames the mantra not as a magical spell to miraculously silence this biological machinery, but as an anchor. The mind desperately wants to work. It wants to process data. So instead of fighting your own biology and demanding silence, you give the mind a mission to live by.
A mission for the mind. That completely reframes the goal of meditation.
Doesn't it?
Instead of trying to turn off a massive supercomputer, which is basically impossible without shutting down the power entirely, you are just opening a specific application that commands all the processing power.
Yes, that's exactly it.
You were saying, hey, instead of running thousands of anxious background processes, run this one specific line of code. The mantra is the job you are assigning to the CPU.
Right. By repeating a specific intentional statement, you interrupt that random, chaotic noise with directed, concentrated purpose.
This lines up so perfectly with the Huberman Lab deep dive. You know, when Professor Andrew Huberman talks about neuroplasticity,
Oh, absolutely.
like he had David Goggins on. And Goggins is all about that harsh internal dialogue to override the brain's governor. It's essentially an intense mantra. And then Huberman had Sam Harris on to discuss focused attention, and Dr. Paul Conti talking about how we construct our mental health narratives.
Right, and all three of those Huberman episodes highlight the exact same biological truth Osman is pointing out. You have to actively give the brain a task, or it will eat you alive with anxiety.
Mel Robbins talks about this constantly on her podcast, too.
Oh, she definitely does.
Mel Robbins' podcast had Dr. Russell Kennedy on, discussing how anxiety is just a habit of the mind. And Dr. Nicole LePera was on there talking about reparenting the mind by interrupting those default loops. Mel's entire 5-second rule is literally just a mini mantra that interrupts the loop.
Exactly. And if we extrapolate on the biological cost of that loop, we have to talk about cognitive bandwidth and decision fatigue.
Okay, let's get into the biology.
The human brain is a massive consumer of glucose. Thinking burns physical energy. When your default mode network is running wild, looping on ambient anxiety, or endlessly replaying that minor awkward conversation you had in the hallway 3 days ago, it is literally draining your metabolic resources.
So you're just physically exhausting yourself by worrying.
Yes. A personal incantation acts as a cognitive filter and an energy-saving mechanism. When you feel the drift into random looping negativity, you deploy the incantation. You are actively saving cognitive bandwidth by redirecting the brain's processing power away from exhausting anxiety and back to a chosen neutral or positive baseline.
It totally shifts the concept from an esoteric ritual you only do while sitting on a specialized yoga cushion to a practical, tactical tool you deploy in the trenches of everyday life.
Exactly.
And to really drive this point home, Osman shares his own background. And it stands in stark contrast to the typical image of a serene, untroubled yogi floating above the concerns of the world.
It really does.
He dives into his life as an entrepreneur, 29 years of building businesses in the real world.
His candor regarding those 29 years is quite striking. In a space where everyone wants to project constant manifestation and success, he openly admits that for the vast majority of that nearly 3-decade journey, he was enduring what he explicitly calls the pains of failure.
The pains of failure. That's so raw.
He estimates that 90% of his entrepreneurial life was sheer grinding struggle, and only 10% of that time allowed for actual success and financial freedom.
And even that precious 10% of success was constantly under threat. He describes getting a brief taste of financial stability, feeling like he finally made it, and then a macroeconomic disaster would hit.
Yeah, just brutal timing.
He lists them out.
Yeah.
COVID lockdowns, global financial crises, massive market corrections, businesses just crashing through no fault of his own.
It is the absolute terrifying roller coaster of the true entrepreneurial reality.
It really is. He specifically zeroes in on a brutal 6-year period when he first became self-employed. He wasn't manifesting super yachts or mansions. He was just desperately striving for normalcy.
The basic, boring normality of being able to pay the bills without panic.
Yes.
During an intensely stressful period like that, a traditional esoteric mantra, like repeating a phrase about cosmic oneness, might feel entirely disconnected from the visceral reality of avoiding bankruptcy or figuring out payroll.
Totally.
When your nervous system is in full fight-or-flight mode over financial survival, you need an anchor that speaks the native language of your actual environment and your actual psychology.
Which is exactly where Osman reveals the specific incantation he engineered for himself during those dark survival mode years. And I have to say, it is wonderfully unconventional.
It's so...
He didn't pull from the Upanishads. His daily mantra was simply, "My future's so bright I got to wear shades."
It sounds almost like a joke at first.
Right.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture and analyze the mechanics of it, it is an absolute masterclass in somatic anchoring.
Somatic anchoring. Tell me more about that.
Well, why does a slightly humorous pop culture lyric work so effectively as a neurobiological tool? Osman explains the context of his roots. He comes from South Africa, a geographic location defined by intense, abundant sunshine.
Okay, I'm tracking with you.
Furthermore, he personally had a deep affinity for wearing beautiful sunglasses. So we have to look past the catchiness of the phrase. This incantation is deeply embedded in his sensory memory.
I see where you were going with this. It's about the physical sensation.
Yeah.
The literal warmth of the South African sun on his skin, the tactile physical feeling of sliding a favorite pair of sunglasses onto his face, the optical sensation of stepping out into overwhelming brightness.
You've got it. We are talking about somatic experiencing. The body stores emotional states alongside physical sensations.
This reminds me of the deep dives on the Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett.
Oh, yeah. Great show.
Like when he had Dr. Joe Dispenza on and they talk endlessly about somatic experiencing. Dispenza is always saying you have to feel the emotion of the future before it happens.
Right. And Gabor Mate was on Stephen Bartlett's show, too, talking about how trauma and stress create physical responses in the body. You have to use the body to heal the mind.
And even Mo Gadat on that same podcast. Solving for Happy is all about managing those expectations and anchoring yourself. Osman, using the sensory memory of the South African sun, is literally doing what Dispenza and Mate talk about.
Exactly. When Osman was sitting in the metaphorical darkness of severe financial struggle, his brain was flooding his system with cortisol and stress hormones.
Panic mode.
Yes. By repeating, "My future's so bright I got to wear shades," he wasn't just saying words. He was engaging his physical, sensory memories of light, warmth, and comfort.
Wow.
He engineered a biological hack to combat psychological despair. He bypassed the intellectual worry, because you can't outthink a financial crisis, by invoking a physical memory of brightness that signaled safety to his nervous system.
It is profoundly effective precisely because it is so intensely personal, tactile, and seemingly mundane.
It's grounded. It's real. Rainn Wilson talks a lot about this kind of grounded, practical spirituality on his podcast, Soul Boom.
Oh, I love Soul Boom.
He had Reza Aslan on talking about exactly this, finding the practical in the spiritual. And Richard Rohr was on discussing how we fall upward from our failures.
Yeah, and Arthur Brooks talking about finding meaning in the second half of life.
Yes, sir.
It all connects back to having a personal anchor that actually means something to you, not just empty words.
Exactly. But here is where I get tripped up and where the methodology becomes so crucial. If he is stressed out of his mind about his business failing, how does he actually use this?
Right.
Because Osman is very clear that he didn't sit in a dark room, cross his legs, and robotically repeat this phrase 1,000 times a day like a punishment.
Yeah, if I sit there and force myself to say, I got to wear shades for an hour when my business burns down, I'm just going to feel ridiculous and probably more stressed.
And you would be running right into a well-documented psychological phenomenon known as semantic satiation.
Semantic satiation.
Yeah.
What's it?
This is what happens when you repeat a word or phrase so continuously that your brain's neural pathways temporarily fatigue. The reactive inhibition kicks in, and the word literally loses all semantic meaning to you.
Oh, like when you say a word too many times and it just sounds like gibberish.
Exactly. It stops being a concept and devolves into a meaningless sequence of sounds. If you robotically force a mantra, you strip it of all its emotional resonance and cognitive power.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because his approach is totally different.
It is.
Instead of a forced march of repetition, he describes simply bringing the phrase up regularly to lightly remind himself. He sprinkled it throughout the natural rhythm of his day.
Just dropping it in.
Yeah. He tied the words to the physical reality of his life. Whenever he actually put his sunglasses on to go outside, or whenever the pressure of the business started to compress his chest, he would just lightly drop that phrase into his mental stream.
It was a gentle cognitive redirection, not a forceful suppression of his reality.
That lightness of touch is the secret ingredient. He allowed the phrase to carry a genuine sense of optimism and, crucially, a little bit of defiance and humor.
Humor is so important. Psychologically, humor is one of the most potent, high-level defense mechanisms we have against trauma and despair.
It totally is.
By choosing a mantra that has a slight smirk to it, a bit of swagger, he prevented the crushing, monolithic weight of his financial reality from entirely subsuming his identity.
Right. Yes, he was an entrepreneur staring down the barrel of failure. But simultaneously, he was a guy who loved his shades because the future was going to be blindingly good. It creates psychological distance from the panic.
It really does. But the journey doesn't stop at mere survival. Osman's weren't just using incantations as a life raft. He uses them as architectural tools.
Okay, this is the transition phase.
Yes. Once he navigated out of that 6-year period of striving for basic normalcy, he transitioned his methodology. He started using much heavier, highly specific, ambition-focused incantations to actively construct his business reality.
We are moving from a defensive, regulating mantra to an offensive, structural incantation.
To do this, he introduces a statement heavily popularized by the personal development speaker Bob Proctor. This is an entirely different beast than the sunglasses phrase.
What is it?
The incantation he adopts is, I'm so happy and grateful that money comes to me from multiple sources of income on a continuous and daily basis.
Now, that is a massive, complex mouthful compared to the sunglasses line.
It's a lot.
It sounds exactly like the kind of absolute manifestation rhetoric you hear pushed by wealth gurus on social media.
It does sound like that.
But what I find incredibly refreshing about Osman sharing this is his total transparency. He doesn't sit there and claim this magically made him a billionaire overnight.
Right, he's very honest.
He openly admits to his audience that he hasn't fully achieved this specific reality yet. He does not have perfectly flowing, flawless, multiple sources of income arriving passively every single day. But he is actively, aggressively striving for it while managing his multiple businesses.
And that level of candidness is what separates a practical psychological tool from toxic positivity or magical thinking. He isn't suggesting you lie to yourself and pretend you are already wealthy.
So what is he suggesting?
He explains the mechanism of these ambition-focused incantations very clearly. The repetitive, highly specific statement goes into your subconscious and creates a structural blueprint.
Okay, I need to play the skeptic here and really dig into that blueprint concept. We always hear that classic quote, whatever the mind can conceive and believe it will achieve.
Sure, Napoleon Hill.
Right. It looks fantastic on a motivational poster, but what are the actual biological nuts and bolts of that? Because just believing money is coming doesn't put money in the bank.
You are absolutely right. Belief alone is insufficient. The mechanism at work here is self-directed cognitive priming. It's deeply tied to a network in the brain called the reticular activating system, or the RAS.
Okay, the RAS. Break that down for us.
Well, the human brain is bombarded by billions of bits of sensory data every single second. If you processed all of it, you would go insane. The RAS acts as the ultimate biological bouncer at the nightclub of your conscious awareness. It aggressively filters out 99% of reality and only looks through the information that it deems strictly relevant to your survival or your current programmed focus.
Like the classic example of buying a new car.
Exactly.
You buy a red Honda and suddenly you see red Hondas everywhere you go. They were always there, but your RAS wasn't programmed to care about them until you bought one.
Precisely. Now, apply that to a business context. If your subconscious blueprint, the program you run every day, is built purely on anxiety and scarcity, your RAS is going to highlight every single threat.
Wow.
You will notice every unpaid bill, every risk in the market, every reason a client might say no. You become hypervigilant to failure.
But when Osman consciously and repetitively programs the phrase, money comes to me from multiple sources on a continuous basis, he is giving his RAS a new search parameter.
He is literally hacking his own mental radar.
His brain starts automatically scanning the horizon for multiple sources of income because he told it that this information is now highly relevant.
Right.
It starts looking for unexpected partnerships, alternative business models, side channels that a scarcity-primed brain would just completely ignore.
It forces an entrepreneur who is constantly refining business plans to literally see the world through a lens of opportunity rather than threat.
It isn't the universe magically handing him money. It is Hebbian neuroplasticity. Neurons that fire together wire together. He is physically rewiring his brain to spot the resources he needs.
Exactly. He is priming the cognitive pump.
This sounds exactly like what Lewis Howes discusses on the School of Greatness podcast.
100%.
Like he had Tony Robbins on there, and Tony's the king of this, right? He's always talking about priming and changing your physical state to change your mental blueprint.
Yes, and Lewis also had Joe Dispenza on to talk about rewiring the brain for greatness.
And Robin Sharma. Talk about the 5 a.m. club and how you program the first hours of your day to dictate what your brain searches for. It's all about setting that RAS filter.
It really is. And if we look deeper into the ancient texts, this concept of a mental blueprint isn't new. You see it in Autobiography of a Yogi.
Oh, Paramahansa Yogananda.
Right. The whole concept of holding a crystal clear image in the mind to manifest reality. And Swami Sivananda talked extensively about thought power. Even Deepak Chopra's work on the law of pure potentiality. It's all the same mechanism.
And even practices like Yoga Nidra, where you plant a sankalpa, an intention, deep into the subconscious while the body is asleep but the mind is aware.
Exactly. If a slightly risky but potentially lucrative opportunity for a secondary income stream presents itself, a mind programmed with scarcity might immediately dismiss it as a distraction or too much work. It gets filtered out.
But a mind primed by that specific continuous incantation recognizes the opportunity as a fulfillment of the intended blueprint.
The incantation changes the cognitive filter changes the behavior, and the sustained behavior inevitably changes the reality.
So as a listener, this requires a deeply honest self-audit. What is the background script currently running in your subconscious today?
That's the big question.
If your mind operates like an internal radio station, what is the specific song playing on an endless loop just beneath your conscious thoughts? Is it a blueprint that actively constructs your business plan or fortifies your family's peace?
Or is it a default loop of unchecked anxiety, meticulously reciting every single thing that could possibly go wrong today?
Osman is proving that you don't have to listen to the default station. He's challenging us to take the pen and intentionally write the broadcast script ourselves.
However, unbridled ambition can become its own trap.
What do you mean?
To balance the aggressive pursuit of multiple income streams, Osman utilizes another profoundly different incantation. This one acts as a philosophical stabilizer.
Stabilize.
He moves away from highly specific financial manifestation and grounds his psychology in a universal, unyielding truth. The incantation he uses to balance himself is, it is impossible for a situation to remain constant, whether it's negative or positive.
Wow, that is a remarkably heavy pivot. That is a massive tonal shift from the swagger of, I've got to wear shades.
It is the voice of deep, hard-earned reason. What Osman is deploying here is the fundamental principle of impermanence.
Which is huge.
It is the absolute cornerstone of many ancient philosophical frameworks, from Western Stoicism, think of Marcus Aurelius writing about the fleeting nature of life, to traditional Eastern thought and Buddhism.
But Osman delivers it entirely stripped of mystical wrapping. He unpacks a profound, unavoidable duality.
So what does this all mean?
Let me play devil's advocate again, because I can see how this might trip people up in daily practice.
Yeah.
I completely grasp the first half of that equation.
The negative part.
Yeah. When you are going through absolute hell, a terrible breakup, a health scare, a business failure, repeating it is impossible for this negative situation to remain constant offers incredible, life-saving hope.
It is the ultimate formulation of this too shall pass. It keeps you from drowning in despair.
But the second half of that phrase, it is impossible for the positive to remain permanently. Why on earth would you want to program that into your brain?
I know, it sounds counterintuitive.
Doesn't actively expecting the negative just ruin the enjoyment of the positive? Why adopt an incantation that intentionally throws cold water on your own hard-won success?
It is a brilliant objection, and it highlights exactly why adopting the specific incantation is a mark of profound psychological maturity.
Okay, explain that.
Recognizing the cyclical waves and patterns of life does not ruin the joy of the high points. Rather, it fundamentally creates resilience.
Resilience.
When human beings experience intense success, joy, or a sudden influx of wealth, our ego undergoes a dangerous transformation. We inherently want to believe that we have finally, permanently solved the complex puzzle of life.
We think, I have arrived at the summit, the struggle is over, and it will be exactly like this forever.
And biology backs that up, right? That is just the dopamine talking. We get that massive spike of reward chemicals, and our brain wants to lock that state in permanently.
It's like we become addicted to the high and assume it's the new baseline.
Precisely. And when that permanent high suddenly inevitably crashes because markets correct, health falters, and circumstances shift, the resulting devastation is absolute.
Because you weren't expecting it.
Right. It completely shatters the ego because reality has violated our expectation of permanence.
This duality is exactly what they explore on the Beer Biceps podcast, the Ranveer show.
Oh, Ranveer Alabadi's show, yes.
He had Sadhguru on, and they talked extensively about the natural cycles of life and how suffering comes from wanting things to be static.
And he had Gaur Gopal Das on, too, talking about finding balance in the extremes of life.
Yes, and Jay Shetty discussing the monk mindset, which is entirely based on detachment. Detachment doesn't mean you don't enjoy the good things. It means you don't desperately cling to them.
Exactly. If your core operating philosophy, the incantation you use to ground yourself, is that the positive is also temporary, it demands immense humility. It demands preparation.
You absolutely enjoy the success. You bask in the sunshine of that South African warmth, but you do not dismantle your shelter just because it isn't raining today.
That brings us right back to his brutal entrepreneurial timeline. He specifically noted that his moments of financial freedom were often agonizingly short-lived, followed almost immediately by global lockdowns or market crashes out of his control.
If you operate under the delusion that your success is permanent, a global pandemic wiping out your revenue will mentally destroy you. You will view it as a unique personal tragedy.
But if you have been consistently telling your subconscious it is impossible for a situation to remain constant, then when the market crashes, you don't fall apart.
You look at the situation and say, here is the downward wave I mathematically knew was coming. It is time to navigate.
It's not pessimism, it's hard-earned wisdom born from surviving actual disaster.
It is the ultimate antidote to psychological fragility. By internalizing impermanence, you are no longer a helpless victim of circumstance, violently tossed between the euphoric mania of success and the crushing despair of failure.
You elevate yourself to become an absolver of the cycle. You find your center of gravity not in the external situation, which you cannot control, but in the internal, unshakable knowledge that the situation will inevitably change.
Okay, so mapping out the territory we've covered. We dismantled the intense pressure of finding secret Sanskrit words. We explored highly personalized pop culture anchors like wearing shades.
We broke down the neurobiology of subconscious programming for wealth via the reticular activating system.
And we just tackled the heavy Stoic philosophy of impermanence. But just when you think you have Osman's methodology mapped out, he throws a massive, completely unexpected curveball at the end of his philosophy.
He really does. He reveals a final form of incantation that shatters everything we've assumed so far.
It forces us to ask a foundational question about the material. What actually defines a mantra if the mechanism doesn't even require a spoken word?
This raises an important question.
Yes, he proposes that an incantation can literally be a physical activity inextricably paired with sound. Specifically, Osman talks about his protocol of working out to intense, high-energy gym music downloaded directly from YouTube.
Now, at first glance, blasting an hour-long set of heavy motivational bass drops while lifting weights doesn't sound anything like the ancient, revered yoga traditions of silent contemplation we usually think of.
Not at all.
But if we hold this up to the underlying psychological mechanism we established at the very beginning of this deep dive, the premise that a mantra is simply a tool that gives the wandering, anxious mind a mission and effectively interrupts random cognitive noise.
Then high-energy music fits the exact scientific definition perfectly.
It really does. Osman explains that committing to listening to this high-energy music regularly completely revolutionizes an exercise protocol.
The driving rhythm, the heavy beats, the escalating tempo, it becomes a repetitive, familiar, and overwhelming cognitive force.
I love looking at this as an external battery pack for the brain.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Up until this point, every technique we've discussed, repeating phrases about sunglasses, reminding yourself of complex business goals, grounding yourself in Stoic philosophy, it all requires you, the user, to actively generate the positive psychology from within your own mind.
You have to be the engine supplying the power.
Exactly. But let's be realistic. There are days when your internal engine is completely flooded.
Oh, definitely.
You are exhausted, your glucose levels are shot, you are deeply stressed, and trying to mentally force yourself to whisper, "My future is bright," feels like a hollow, exhausting lie.
That highlights the core limitation of purely internal cognitive tools. They always require a baseline level of metabolic and psychological energy to initiate and sustain.
What Osman is describing with the gym music is essentially a biological hack. When you put your headphones on and play that hour-long set of high-energy music, you are explicitly letting an external source take over the heavy cognitive lifting.
As he vividly puts it, it acts as an incantation pumped directly from an external source into your brain,
Right.
forcibly changing your psychology positively.
The mechanics of that are fascinating. The driving beat literally overrides the chaotic, anxious internal monologue of the default mode network.
You don't have to cognitively convince yourself to be energized. The music biologically steps in.
Through a process called rhythmic entrainment, the music physically forces your heart rate to sync up with the tempo. It triggers the release of dopamine and adrenaline. It physically pumps you up.
The music itself becomes the mantra that you don't even have to expend the energy to speak.
And we all understand this on a deeply intuitive level. Everyone listening has that one specific song that, within the first 3 seconds of the intro, instantly alters their neurochemistry and changes their mood.
What Osman is advocating for is taking that accidental occurrence and turning it into an intentional, systematic protocol.
He is suggesting the deliberate surgical curation of your audio environment to support your psychological mission, exactly as you would use a carefully chosen spoken phrase.
And it makes you think about all his other protocols. I mean, he's a master-level bioenergy healer with telepathic healing capabilities. He works with quantum and entanglement principles.
Right. He specializes in critical care, recovery, and terminal illnesses.
It's intense work. He's practiced at an advanced level for 50 years, sometimes up to 18 hours daily in certain stages.
Which explains his uncommon ability to heal and his high treatment fees for those premium services. Though again, he provides so much for free on his YouTube channel to just spread the message.
Right. And you can find all that at yogawellness786.com. But he also has a Patreon channel for paid live daily video, online lessons, one-on-one consultations, and group sessions.
The key takeaway is that whether it's his high-level energy healing or just turning on gym music, it's about shifting the energetic and cognitive state.
So I challenge you to think about your own daily playlists right now. Are you intentionally utilizing audio to hack your mood and support your goals? Or are you just consuming audio on default?
Are you unintentionally feeding yourself low energy, melancholic, or highly aggressive incantations during your morning commute?
Are you setting a terrible, anxiety-ridden blueprint for your day without even realizing it, just because that's what Spotify autoplayed?
It demands a vital, ongoing self-audit. From a neurological perspective, every single piece of media we consume repetitively acts as a form of incantation.
It is shaping our neural pathways, whether we consciously label it as a mantra or not.
This has been such an incredible paradigm-shifting journey today.
It really has. We started by confronting the immense and frankly paralyzing cultural pressure of finding the perfect, secret Sanskrit mantra that supposedly unlocks the secrets of the universe.
Osman helped us systematically dismantle that expectation. He showed us that if a widely praised tool doesn't fit your unique psychological operating system, it was merely a compatibility issue, not a personal failure on your part.
From there, we moved away from pressure and into the profound tactical practicality of highly personalized anchors.
We examined how a simple, slightly humorous phrase tied deeply to a tactile somatic memory like the warmth of wearing sunglasses in the South African sun can successfully combat the darkest, most stressful days of entrepreneurial failure.
We looked at the mechanics of how to aggressively rewrite the subconscious blueprint, utilizing the reticular activating system to actively seek out wealth and opportunity.
While simultaneously ensuring we ground ourselves in the unshakable, stoic reality of impermanence, the humbling knowledge that no high or low lasts forever.
And finally, we dramatically expanded the very definition of what a mantra can be. We moved beyond spoken words to include our external sensory environment.
Recognizing that an hour of high-energy gym music can bypass our exhausted internal monologue and pump positive neurochemistry directly into our brains.
The core synthesis of Osman's methodology is incredibly liberating. A mantra is simply a utilitarian tool for intentional focus.
It absolutely does not need to be spiritual. It does not need to be culturally foreign or artificially complex.
Its only requirement is that it resonates deeply with your specific psychology, and that it tangibly, measurably improves your quality of life. And if you want to dive deeper into Osman's work, you can listen to his deep dive on both Apple Podcasts and Spotify by searching for the Blind Muslim Yogi.
That is the perfect distillation of the scientific approach to this ancient practice. It is ruthlessly focused on what actually works for the individual, period.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final lingering thought based on everything we've uncovered about how the brain absorbs information.
Okay, let's hear it.
Osman showed us how deliberately deploying an hour of gym music can act as a positive external incantation that completely rewires your physical and mental state. But think about all the other unmanaged ambient noises in your life.
Oh, that's a scary thought.
The 24-hour news cycle playing in the background of your living room. The cynical looping office complaints you absorb every single lunch break. The specific, algorithmically driven tone of outrage on the social media feeds you scroll through before bed.
If repetitive sound and phrasing act as an external source pumped directly into your brain, physically altering your neural pathways.
What unintentional, destructive incantations are you currently allowing to program your subconscious every single day?